Hello guys, once again it's Matt, and today we have another video. Thank you all the members, all the patrons, make sure to subscribe. We are trying to hit 50k, and let's get into it. So, today we are flying out the F-16 against the MiG-29 and the MiG-29 against F-16 in the dev server with the new flight models that were changed. And I wanted to talk a little bit about it. So first things first, disclaimer to this video guys. Obviously, we are not the best pilots ever. I mean, we are just trying to do our best. So chill out a little bit on that, because each player will have its own abilities, and each player basically plays in a better way with a certain aircraft. For me, for example, I do play a lot better with the MiG-29 than anything else, just because I like the aircraft and I played a lot more with it than with other stuff, right? So yeah, each and everybody has that as well. And obviously this is the most important part. Each and everybody that you see and know and love and hate, everybody has a bias. The unbiased opinion is non-existent, okay? So yeah, please understand that. But we are just having fun flying the both aircraft to see if we can actually learn something from it. And we actually did. They're very, very similar. I actually made, like using the overlay program here, basically the same tests after this to actually check some of the stats. And I noticed that the AOA of the F-16 is slightly better on the continuous turn. And the turn rate, it is like slightly better as well in the continuous rate fight, okay? This is the only thing that I can think of that the F-16 actually wins over the MiG-29, while the only thing that the MiG-29 clearly wins over the F-16 is the instantaneous turn, depending on the speed that you are. You really need to control your speed a lot more in the MiG-29. And everything else is kind of the same. The MiG-29 can accelerate the F-16 sometimes, but it depends on many things. Like, it depends on the altitude, depends on the temperature, depends on the starting speed that the aircraft was. So it will always come down to the pilot. What Gaijin actually said about the F-16 and the MiG-29 is that they are actually pretty balanced right now. And I cannot agree more with them. I still think that the MiG-29 is better in some areas, but it is a lot more complicated to fly, and you need to think about your actions a lot more than the F-16. The F-16 is a lot easier to fly, so even though it has a little bit of a disadvantage in some of the occasions, like radar, for example, and range and the missiles and stuff, you can just make more mistakes and like be fine with it. Even sometimes, obviously, the bigger the mistake, the harder it is to recover, but still. And you will notice that the first turn on the one circle, they're pretty similar. And basically, all of the battle, I mean, I'm winning with the F-16 more, and you will see when I get into the MiG-29 that he will end up win more. But I think it's more to the fact of us just not using the MiG-29 correctly, I think. Especially due to the rate fight. If you want to win against the MiG-29 in this flight model, I do think that you just need to put the MiG-29 in a rate fight. You will eventually win. And there is another disclaimer on that as well. I will do a proper video talking about that and showing some of the things with the overlay program. But the MiG-29, I don't know about the F-16, so don't roast me because of I'm not going to say about the F-16. I'm just saying that I have information about the MiG-29, and on the F-16 I don't. On the MiG-29, I do have information that it is underperforming on the turn rate, okay? Not on the turn rate itself, but on the amount of AOA that it can actually pull, according to two books that I have. One is called, obviously, the MiG-29, Mikoyan MiG-29 Russian Aircraft by Yefim Gordon, and the other one is Mikoyan MiG-29 Fulcrum, by James, so How to Fly and Fight in the MiG-29 Fulcrum, John Lake. So yeah, these two books, they state that all the 912s and 913s, they started their life with a 22 degrees of maximum AOA limit that's a safety limit. Of course, the aircraft could pull a lot more, and according to these sources, along the years of introduction, by the middle of the 80s, it was already relaxed to 26 degrees. They were actually just making sure that the aircraft could hold its ground in a safety manner in a dogfight like that. But according to a pilot that actually, I don't know if it, an American pilot that he flew against the MiG-29 or in the MiG-29, he actually stated that the MiG-29 has an advantage that the NATO aircraft don't have. Or not that they don't have, but the MiG-29 can actually do this in a more safe way, apparently, which is just push the envelope. So even though the 26 degrees per AOA, basically, it is, the max limit that the pilot knew, you could push it even more if you wanted to, like for 28 or even 30 sometimes, and the aircraft would just respond, obviously having to go throughout a maintenance run after that to just make sure that the aircraft wasn't, ripped or something, or just cracked in the wing roots or something like that. But it can do a lot more than the manual says. But that's the thing that we wanted to talk about. The actual AOA of the MiG-29 right now, it's barely 23 degrees, Jesus. You cannot pull more than that. So it is already from a safety limit, already 3 degrees less. And obviously safety limits are not a major thing in War Thunder, since obviously if that was a thing, we wouldn't be able to actually pull more than 9 Gs, okay, for if most of these aircraft, even less than that, with for example the F-14, the MiG-23, it would be 8, 6.7 in the case of some situations with the F-14. So yeah, these are safety limits, right? It's not something that applicable in real life. And the AOA limits are also not applicable if they are a safety limit. But the funny part is that even the safety limit is hard to actually get to in the MiG-29. So it is turning less than it should, apparently. I will be doing a bug report on that, and I will be doing a video covering specifically that, so I will explain there more. But yeah, it is a problem that the MiG-29 is not turning as much as it should. But as I said, this is the information that I got from 2 sources on the MiG-29. It's not that the F-16 could not turn more, it's just that I don't have info on the F-16, and I know a lot of people will have it. So yeah, of course, a lot of people say that the F-16 can turn a lot more as well. So yeah, it is problematic, right? But beyond those little things that are not that little, as you can see here, I mean, yeah, the MiG-29 and the F-16 are very similar to each other. It will always depend on the pilot, and also always depend on one mistake. It's funny how easy it is to do a mistake on these dogfights and just die very quickly. We are flying the MiG-29 here, and yeah, it was just trying to get a little bit of distance from the target to actually be able to turn a little bit more to actually get it. And as you see, we are just flying like in a kind of a weird scissors here, but it is happening a lot, and eventually I get him, but it is hard nonetheless. And with the F-16, it is also a little bit hard as well. But I noticed that it depends very much on the pilot. It is just a matter of knowing what to do, when to do. Maybe the MiG-29, we didn't test it because we can only have one of the variations of it. For example, here I did a terrible mistake going downwards, but so I just lost all my speed, and I just went for a rate fight kind of unconsciously, so I just killed myself here. So yeah, rate fights in very, very low speeds are very problematic against the MiG-29, against the F-16 with the MiG-29. And but I do think that in kind of the MiG-29 912A, it will be a little bit easier, maybe because it is a little bit lighter, the aircraft. So in a soonish future, we will do a dogfight video between the 912 and the F-16 as well. But as you see, one mistake with such similar aircraft can mean you're dead. So that's a thing that you really, really need to be careful, you know. And even if it's one aircraft can do one thing or another better, I still think that personal preference will always come down to the main source of success in the aircraft. So yeah, even though I know how to play in the F-16 and it is enjoyable, I enjoy flying my MiG. So I really don't care if one of them has a tiny margin or not. I know that they are kind of balanced. Now with the 912, hopefully we see more MiGs flying around, because with just the Soviet one, there was not that many people flying the MiG, right? So hopefully we have that. But yeah, it is just an aircraft that I enjoy more flying. I really don't care if it's better or not in the game. I know that it's capable enough to kill basically every single aircraft there is out there, and it's basically one of the best aircraft in the game. It's always fighting for that top spot, and the F-16 too, right? If you play with the F-16, it's always going to come down to your skill against the other guy. You can have an F-5E or an F-4E trying to kill you, and you get killed in a MiG-29 or in an F-16 because you did a mistake. So it always comes down to the pilot not trying to quote too much of Maverick from Top Gun, but kind of doing it, because basic flight maneuvers, especially in these dogfights, are very important, and I always try to go a little bit further on that. I try to research and know how they use these tactics and stuff, and War Thunder is actually a very good platform to actually learn that. Don't get me wrong, DCS is amazing as well, but I don't know, DCS is just such focused on the aircraft itself that sometimes you don't have too much time to actually learn this basic stuff. You really need to put your effort there into it. And War Thunder with the third person, it actually helps you a little bit to understand what you can do and what you cannot do in a better or worse way to actually, you know, win a fight. So that's actually a very good and very interesting prospect of the things. Here I was trying to escape the raid fight, and I just couldn't, so I just tried to run away a little bit, and as you see I can outrun the F-16 no problem, but it ended up being my worst mistake here. Yeah, a lot of the times when I killed him, he was doing a lot of mistakes, and when I got killed by him, I was doing a lot of mistakes. So it is not even a variable that we can actually remove and say that the F-16 is better or not. As I said, I think both of the aircraft have each of their own best abilities, you know, best performance in certain situations, but in others it's worse than the other one. So it, as I said, comes down to the pilot to use this strength against the weaknesses of your enemy, as always. But let me know in the comments what you think the meta will be like in the next patch, and I see you guys on the next one. Make sure to subscribe, and bye guys, see you.